This song, every single time, is like a breath of fresh air to me. I love it so much. This cutscene, iconic. Welcome back to VSCode Spelunking. It's been a minute. I took a vacation from work and doing the whole YouTube thing. Let me turn this down. Yeah, I took a bit of a vacation, and I'm back now, ready to dig back into this whole dungeon, this process, this system of systems that I'm learning that Ocarina of Time is. And I'm ready. This opening cutscene is more than what you think it is. It's a whole list of commands that Link is doing there, and Epona. There are like triggers that fire as we're going here to tell the actors what to do. This logo that we're looking at right now is an actor in the world, which was probably one of the bigger like revelations that I had when going through all this stuff. So what I want to do today is dig into that actor's code. We've sort of dug through from the beginning to finding the opening cinematic and sort of understanding how we load into this world, right? This is spot 00. We're loading on a particular scene layer that's loading a specific cutscene. That scene layer has actors in the world. One of those actors is ZEN Mag, which is that logo there. And yeah, I think it's time to dig into that code, because I want to see how we get into not just the opening cinematic, but now how does the opening cinematic get us into the loading screen? I want to make a much larger video sort of summarizing everything that I've learned up to that point. And while I was in the middle of writing it, I realized, oh wait, we don't actually have, like, it'd be great if that sort of captured everything up until we actually load into the game. And yeah, before jumping into that, I do have a bit of a community shout out to make. So, OneUp Labs said, the code has been updated and the scenes have been renamed since this video, or whichever commit you're working off of in this video. I'm digging in alongside the series, and I'm seeing you scroll through CS 00A920 saying, I could be looking at it right now, was a great thing to hear. All while I'm looking through the renamed G Hyrule Field title screen CS. So yeah, this project has been changed. Like some of my videos are already sort of technically outdated with a few of the things that I look for. For example, I was looking for a while to figure out where is this cutscene located, and it was named cutscene 00A920. And since then, shoutouts to Yanis, who went through and named a ton of the cutscenes in the game. So the codebase is now a little bit easier to dig through thanks to Yanis. That's been renamed. I believe I'm now on latest main as of January 2025. So, you know, I'm sure anybody in the future looking at this, if you try to dig into the codebase and maybe even follow along, it's not going to be one-to-one. It just isn't. People are constantly working on this database. It's an ever-evolving project, and it's really cool to see. Without further ado, let's open VSCode. Close this. All right, so the first thing I want to quickly show, I very briefly took a bit of time to work on a little bit of a diagram for sort of how this, I guess you could say, the architecture of how Ocarina of Time works. So first and foremost, we have scenes. You can think of this kind of at like a Unity scene, and these are not one-to-one, you know, check the comments for corrections and so on. But we have a scene. Scenes have rooms. Rooms have actors, objects. This is incorrect. The cutscenes do not belong to rooms. Cutscenes belong to scenes. So let's fix that. So this should be scene. Great. Scenes also have layers. There should probably be some other thing in this diagram, because layers define which actors are in this scene, what objects are in this scene. This is very work in progress. I just threw this together, but I wanted to give you an idea of how this code base kind of works. And we can look for the scene that we are trying to find. So if we go to scene table, there should be a spot 00. And spot 00 scene is scene Hyrule Field. Now we can also see a spot 00 scene. So there's a scene file. This scene file has, oh, I need to pull the latest. So let's get stash, get pull, clear the screen, minimize. Oh, right, these are extracted. So I need to run another build to actually name this stuff, which I'm gonna do right now. Let me actually pause the recording. Okay, so if I look up 00A920, it's not gonna be here anymore. Shoutouts to Yanis. But what did he call it? G Hyrule Field title screen, CS. That checks out. I believe there was one flag here. Yeah, CS Dest title screen demo. That sets up which cutscenes we're going to end up at after this cutscene finishes. So, good stuff. Thanks for commenting that. And, alright, so we know what the cutscene is. Let's go back to the scene table. It was spot 00 scene, so let's go... Sorry, we were just here. Scroll way up to the top. All right, and here we've got some headers. Which one of these... Which layer are we in? What was it, 7? I think it was. So it's 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Ian Mag should live in here. This one should have... Yes, that's the cutscene. There should be a, like, actor list. Light settings, exit, special files, room list. This has a room that lives somewhere on the cartridge. How did I find exactly that? Z, Ian, Mag. Because we don't have a room yet. Okay, so this defines room 0. So let's go ahead and go to spot 00 room 0. And the actor lives in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you're wondering why I started with... Let's see, Ian Mac. If you're wondering why I started with 1 here, that's because this is actually the first one. And then we have alternate headers, which are these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would exist here. This has an actor list. This appears not to be the right one because I'm not seeing an EN mag here. There it is. So this is the right one. All right, so we have a bunch of stuff here. A bunch of wood. Hanebasi, I don't remember what that was. Murray. Wood 02. Is this zoomed in enough? Yeah, let's do that. Apparently the sound coming from the river comes from an actor in the world. But let's just focus our search on ZEN Mag. All right, scroll up to the top. ZEN Mag is the title screen manager and logo. This is interesting. It reminds me of Unity in the sense that in Unity you do have scenes. And if you want some overarching code that looks at all the scenes, no matter which scene that you're on, you need some sort of game object that you almost forcibly persist between scenes. We had to do this in Gravatorium, the indie game that I worked on before I started doing these videos. And it's kind of the same idea here. If you want logic to run in a scene, you don't put that logic in like a scene update. You put it in an actor within that scene, and then that actor does whatever you need it to do. So that's what's happening here. It initializes, destroys, updates, and draws. I assume every single actor has to do all of these things. I suppose this would be in an interface if we were using like C# or another language. Okay, so this actor cap prop is, I guess actors have categories. I feel like I've seen that before, and this is a prop within the world. Yeah, actors have categories. We've got switches, background, player, explosives, NPC, enemy, prop, item action, miscellaneous, boss, door, chest, and then this is probably just the limit. Object mag. Okay, can't find the definition. But we have a struct for en mag itself. So it has the actor itself, unused data, I think it was. It has a font, effect fade in state, fade in timer, global state, level of detail, something, color, environment color, the alpha, which is changing. That's how it fades in. I suppose the same thing is happening with the copyright. I don't know what effect scroll would be. Fade out, alpha step. Yep, how quickly it fades in and out, and these appear unused. enmag itself has a state associated with it. So the initial state is probably when it's hidden. It most likely listens for a flag to come in from the cutscene that triggers it to then fade in. Display is probably, hey, it's done fading in. We are now at full transparency, or zero transparency, however you want to look at that, before it begins fading out. And I don't know what post display is, but I guess we'll find out today. All right, so we're focusing on zen-mag here. I want to keep top of mind, what am I trying to do here? I want to figure out how we now get from the opening cinematic, the opening cutscene, to that loading menu now. So we've gone from the beginning of the game running, like the second you turn the power on. We figured out how we get into the game loop. We figured out how we get into the right scene, how we get into the right scene layer, how that cutscene sort of sends a bunch of messages to this overarching system, how actors in the world listen to those flags. Check out the last video if you haven't, where I go through with Sarin to figure out why a certain glitch happens in Ocarina of Time. That's a great way to see how that like actor flag gets thrown, and then how actors listen to those flags. But I'll also talk about it here. So let's start with init. So when we initialize, I don't know what is this register stuff, probably. All right, so skipping over this, our default steps are 6 and 10. Okay, so it fades out faster than it fades in, possibly. Copyright alpha step might be different from the actual logo's alpha step, so we'll see. More register stuff. All right, setting a bunch of values. Setting colors. Okay, so we have a timer for fading in, apparently. All right, so we set its fade in state to what? Prime load frac. Is this... what the heck is that? Okay, so fade in state equals whatever that is, which equals global state, which equals effect alpha. Okay, it all equals 0 anyway, so it's just initializing a ton of stuff to 0. Okay, now if in the save context we want to force rising button alphas, and oh yes, thank you, it's commented. If button alphas are updated through interface, some other function, instead update them through raise button alphas. Okay, so it seems like force rising button alphas. It sounds like this boolean, right? Oh, it's not a boolean. It's got 8 bits in there. It seems like this determines whether to fade in or fade out based off of this comment. Okay. When does this if statement end? All right, so this if statement ends here. What does it do? Sets the main alpha to 210. Sets full alpha. I don't... 0 transparency. Does that mean it is fully transparent, as in you can't see anything? Or does 255 mean it is transparent? I don't know how that works. I'm going to assume that because we are forcing... The word force makes me think that This has to do with, does the logo just pop up immediately? If it does, then we probably want alpha to be at full value, meaning we can see it. So I'm assuming right now that a higher alpha value means you can see more of it. Setting a bunch of colors. The color changes based off of master quest. Primary color is an array of 3. Is this RGB? Red, green, blue? Not sure. All right, and then we stop trying to force it, and then we are in the display state. Okay, so my assumption appears correct, which is that a higher alpha value means you can see the thing. So if force rising button alphas is true, then we just go to the display state. We're showing the logo, and then we have a delay timer of 20. Transition fade duration, wipe speed. Okay, those don't look... Well, I don't know what those would apply to yet. We load a font. Loads full set of character textures based on their ordering. Okay, so loads the font. Zeroes out a bunch of stuff. Okay. We don't do anything for destroying enmag, but we know how it initializes now. I'm actually kind of surprised it doesn't take out of its actor params, but I suppose if we always know that this actor's only ever going to be in the title screen, we don't need parameters to specify anything special about it. So we don't care about actor params. We just care about, are we going to force the UI to come up immediately? Okay. All right, so that's its initialization function. Let's look at its update. So we have enmag init, reset SRAM, not super interested in that. Update, okay, we have draw texture, so it knows how to draw itself, which is interesting. Okay, so in here, it's probably going to call its, okay, draw inner, which probably calls those other, ooh, file name uppercase. NOCO controller, okay. No controller font. Press start. Oh, okay. So here are the strings. Loads the font. Not going to dig too deeply into that. The draw logic is not necessarily something I'm personally interested in. I am interested in the logic that actually takes us to different areas. So that's what draw looks like. Where is update? Okay, so update interests me the most. I have already seen, I mean, we can see it right here where we check for AB start, and AB start plays some audio. Now we're getting into stuff that actually transitions us to the next screen here. If the file number is not whatever that is, when would it ever be that? I want to do a quick search here. Is there ever a point where we set it equal to that? Yes, in the title screen. Valid controllers. Valid controllers mask. Oh, if it's not 1, which presumably means if there's not a valid controller. So I guess it would only check for this if there was a valid controller. All right, so the next check is checking if the global state is less than mag display. Remember that mag display is here. It is an enum. Enums are numbers. This would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So mag display being 2, we're checking, are we either in initial or fade in? So if it's fading in or it hasn't started fading in yet, then let's check for start, A or B. If any of those are pressed, then we play some audio. This is the piece of heart sound. And we set, I assume these are the same values as when force rising button alphas is set. Yeah, so Here, when we initialize, if we're just forcing those, the main menu to pop up, yeah, these look like the same values. Okay. And we're back here. So if we press those buttons, then we are back in the display state. This code looks identical. Delay timer, yeah, I think it actually is. Okay. Now, if we are greater than or equal to display, if the logo is being shown to the player, or if it's fading out, or whatever this post display is, and if the delay timer is 0, then we check again, and we check if we're not transitioning already, is what this appears to be for me. We set a cutscene flag. We play the piece of art again. We switch our game mode. Transition trigger equals transition trigger start. Okay, so we've just told play is our play state because we are in the game right now. Like, we are in the play state. So our game mode, I believe, is... Oh, I thought that was an enum. Our game mode is most likely title screen. Normal, title screen, file select, end credits. So these must be the game modes while we are in the play state. So file select is also running in the play state, is what that looks like to me. And end credits is also in the play state. I think this is an assumption. So let's go back. So we say the next game mode is going to be file select. We say start transitioning, and the transition type is a fade to black. All right. All of this makes sense so far. And then we say that we are fading out. Oh, that's only if we haven't started transitioning. Then we fade out. But this is still checking if we've pressed a button. If we've pressed a button, then we are going to be fading out, no matter what. Okay. So we have this timer here. This timer looks like... if we're on the display state or further, we're subtracting from this timer. Now, what was this timer? 20. So 20 updates. Yeah, so this was if we just popped up the ZEN mag, set the timer. And we're constantly subtracting from that timer as long as that actor ZEN mag is visible, then we're constantly subtracting from the timer. But when it hits 0, when it equals 0, we check for all of this. Interesting. So only when we see 0. Does it ever reset is my next question. But when the timer has run out, we're checking if we hit the button. If we hit the button, we do all of this stuff. Meaning we fade it out and we are in the middle of transitioning, presumably. But 20 updates is not a lot of time. I believe, if we can assume, and this is probably actually wrong, that what is the frame rate that Ocarina of Time runs at? I don't actually know this. If you know in the comments, I'm not going to look it up right now, but my point here is subtracting something every time an actor is updated is not going to... it's going to happen extremely fast. So 20 is a very small number for that. So this is probably meant to be a very, very short timer. And if I could make another assumption, what would it be for? It sounds like this would put in just a very, very short delay before you could hit a button, before you could hit a button the second time to actually transition you into the next game state. Again, it's my guess. If you know better, then, please post a comment. So cool. So this is how we actually do the transition to the next game mode. Now, I seem to remember that you had to set running equal to false in your save context, or maybe it was the game state. So I just really want to quickly check this. There's an is running. There's a lot of stuff in there. This has a game state. Running. So that has a running in it. Inside of it. That is not being set to false here. But there's more to the update function, so let's keep checking it. If we are fading in, then we increment our alpha value and all that. Yeah, okay, so increasing alpha means it is showing. And modifying the colors. Yeah, this seems pretty straightforward. If the fade-in timer is 0, you want to make sure that everything is at its full value. That checks out. Ah, so there's a state here. Effect fade-in state. There are 5 uses of this. So it's either 1 or 2, or 0. If it's 0, we are fading in. Once the timer hits 0, we are done fading in, so now we're in the next state. Oh, so there's still stuff that's changing in there. So some colors are changing once we're done fading in. Right, there is an effect that's happening over that logo. Let me launch the game again. Okay, so here's the game. We want to see what it looks like after it's done fading in. Okay, so here's the fade in. Yeah, see, there's a glow on it. I wonder if that's what it is. So here we are now in the, what was the state? Let's pause it. We are in, not fade in. So now ZEN mag, which is this actor right here, is in this state, this mag state display. So now it's checking for button presses. Okay, so this is while it's fading in. So it's incrementing until it gets to a certain point, until this fade timer is done. Once the fade timer is done, we're in the next state. So we're still modifying something about the color here. I assume that has to do with this glow that's happening around the image. I have to assume the image is static, but this effect that's happening around it must not be. So the colors are still being modified. Oh, did the fade-in timer get set again? Okay, so 40 ticks, let's say. For 40 ticks, we're modifying the color. Once it hits 0, we set what the colors should be. And I think that's the end of this state here. Yeah, okay. So that's the end of state 1, whatever that means. Okay, there's not an immediate state 2 check yet. If the alpha is above a certain amount... Oh, this is probably a clamp right here. Yeah, if it's greater than 210, force it to be 210. I don't know what this is doing, but... yeah, we clamp the sub-alpha. Clamping is just making sure a number doesn't go beyond a certain limit. If the sub-alpha is greater than something or other, then we modify the copyright alpha. And then we are in the display state. And we set the delay timer to 2 again. Okay. All right, now all of this was in an if statement checking what? If we are fading in. So the first thing we actually check is... Wait, no, let me go past this if statement here. Right. So now we check if we're fading in. which ends right about where I finished digging through. Now we check if we're fading out. If we're fading out, I assume it just does the reverse. We make sure to clamp the values. That makes sense. Subtract and then immediately clamp. You don't want anything weird happening there. Okay, so this is where post display is now coming in. All right, so we're checking if the global state. Make sure that I'm not inside of an if statement right now. I am not. If the global state is initial. Oh, here's where we check for the cutscene flag. Cool. Here's how ZENMAG checks to see, did the cutscene fire a specific flag? So for ZENMAG, as long as it's in the initial state, it checks, hey, check this play state, which is our like game state object. That this thing always gets passed around. Check it to see if this particular flag was fired. If it was, set this fade in timer and begin fading in. And we've seen what fade in does above. Else, if we are checking if we are in the display state. Display means we are fully visible. Then check if the cutscene flag 4 is fired. When that is, we fade out. So let's go to spot 00, scene, and then let's look up title. Okay, title card, that was probably it. All right, so we're here. So here it must fire some cutscene flags. Where are these cutscene flags? Here we go. Cutscene miscellaneous. This is a miscellaneous command. Set CS flag 3. What are these numbers? Start frame, end frame. So at frame 230, we are setting flag number 3. Setting flag number 3 tells ENMAG to start fading in. That fade in logic then goes here, and we're still in ENMAG update. So that fade in logic, once this begins running, we're in the first fade in state. We just start adding to the alpha. This image is now becoming visible as a result of the cutscene saying, hey, fire this generic cutscene flag number 3. But it's this actor's job to listen for that flag. This gets into something that I started to understand in the last video while talking to Sarin, which is that this is a system here, right? Like this is a single cutscene system that has to work for every cutscene in the game. So you couldn't possibly say, oh, we have a very specific flag for ZENMAG in the title screen. You would have thousands of flags. A flag for every single cutscene, a flag for every single character, and a flag for every single action that any given character does in any cutscene. That's not scalable. Let's see where these are defined. Okay, so in z64 cutscene.h, we have a cutscene miscellaneous type. And we already have a ton of cutscene commands here, or miscellaneous. I suppose they're not necessarily commands, but this is a category of cutscene that actors, or this is a category of cutscene flag that actors need to listen to. I'm not sure how the environment works in this context, but I'll see Deku Tree Death is there. So there are some very specific ones apparently. Quake Start, Quake Stop. It's actually pretty cool. Halt all actors, resume all actors. And then there's just CS flag 3 and 4. Now, where are these used? Cutscene flag set. Oh, wow. These are very specifically used for ZENMAG, apparently. Are these used anywhere else? So, misc type, this is the definition. Here's where this is being used. Here's where this is being checked in ZDemo. This is that, this right here, this massive switch statement with all these cases here. I had mentioned this sort of resembles the bytecode pattern where Essentially, this system defines, like this cutscene system, defines a very specific set of possible flags, actions, whatever. Any operations that need to be done, here is where those operations are handled. So the cutscene itself defines, hey, send flag 3, send flag 4. But like what actually happens when flag 3 or flag 4 is called, well, guess what? We set a cutscene flag in the play state. Remember, play state itself has a game state, and in that game state has a... Actually, this is something I don't know. So in play state, there's got to be a flag holder somewhere, right? So cutscene flag set takes the play state and a flag and then sets the flag. So we figure out how to put that flag into a number. So a play state has cutscene flags. And it's just an array of 20 things. Array of 20 unsigned 16-bit numbers. So it takes it from the index. So the flag itself stores the index that it's going to go in. And then we get the bit out of it. And yeah, okay, we mask it. Okay. I'm not 100%. I get what's happening here at a high level, but the actual like nitty-gritty of this, I'd have to like really dig into to fully understand. But this is how we set a flag in the play state. So let's take a step back and let's look at this one last time. So we have a title screen cutscene. That title screen cutscene contains all the commands for Link running on Hyrule Field. For this cutscene right here, all of these are commands for Link, for Epona, for whatever else is happening in the cutscene. The ones that I care about right now have to do with this title logo that's here right now. And those are flags 3 and 4. When these flags get fired, meaning in our Z demo, this is sort of, I think this is the cutscene system. In here, in this cutscene command miscellaneous function, it checks for these flags and a bunch of other flags. And then it handles whatever needs to be done for those flags. Now, in our case here, for CS flag 3 and 4, these are very specific, where they just dig into this play state, which is the same play state that ZEN Mag is looking for, which is here, this play state is what ZEN Mag has access to. So it calls cutscene flags get on this play state, looking for this one. Whereas when the cutscene system sees this particular command, which was in this cutscene, it calls cutscene flags set on the play state with that particular flag. So that's how ZEN Mag is able to see, oh, hey, the cutscene system, it set this flag. Now I need to start fading in, or now I need to start fading out. That's really awesome. Is that all of update? I think it is. Wow. Okay. So let's go back up. What else am I wondering now? So we've changed the game mode, but we haven't set running to false. I might be misremembering how that's actually supposed to work. But either way, something in here actually has to tell the game loop now we are changing game states. Let's go to, what is it, graph, graph.c. What I want to find now is what happens in the core game loop. There should be a graph update. So the core game loop is somewhere here. Oh, sorry, it was graph thread entry. All right, so here is where the core game loop starts, where it has to load an overlay. We have a game state. We initialize the game state, and while it's running, we check while the game state is running. Then we update the graph. So we never set running equal to false, which means we must not ever transition out of this game state. So, game state overlay table. Okay, so we did see, I'm gonna close this. First of all, let's check. Okay, game mode is changing, not game state. And we did see that file select is also a game mode. So we must not actually transition out of the play state. What is it? Let's go back to graph. Yeah, so game state running is never set to false, which means we're still in the play state, but we've changed the game mode. So now I'm curious, let's go to zplay. Let's check while the game mode is normal. Let's look for this specific state. Okay, we don't check for that. So then we might have to listen for this. Trigger void out. Load to last entrance. Okay. What are we looking at now? We are looking at what happens when we actually press A, or we actually press start, and now we're going into that loading menu. We set a transition trigger, and we change the game mode. There are a lot of transition trigger starts. Let's see, in mag, Z player. Let's see. So play does check for file select. If we're not in file select. Oh, hey. If the transition trigger is not... Oh boy. We have another state here. Oh, we have transition modes. But we don't set it. Is transition type a transition mode? No, they're two different things. Transition mode is in Z64 transition. Okay. So exiting and entering an area sounds like transitions. Transition type, though. Transition type seems to be what, like, animation is playing as you're transitioning. So in this case, we are fading to black. But we have set transition trigger to start. So in play, we must check for this transition trigger. Okay, let's look for transition trigger. If we're not end. Okay, there is no transition trigger start in here. Oh, this is not a transition mode. This is just a constant. What? Where else is this used? Void out. That sets to transition trigger start. Oh man, I hope there's not logic in the player. That checks this stuff. All right, this is a... I'm poking at things, and it's not clicking immediately. So we've pressed the button. That button says we've now changed our game mode. There are multiple things that I can look at from this point to follow the thread of how we get to the file select. You would think just look up file select and you would find it, and maybe that's what I have to do. Let's read the note. Only instance type transitions swap to file select. Is there an instance? Instance init, instance running. Instance wait. Does this lead us anywhere? This is in Z play. This is in play update. This logic. Oh, wait, there's a running false. In transition mode, instance running. We set running to false, and if the game mode is not file select, we set the next game state to play in it. But what if it is file select? Then we set the next game state to file select. But we don't set running... Oh, no, we do. Okay, I see. But this is if we're not in transition trigger end. So what happens in ZA and mag? Okay, it wouldn't be end. We know that much. Okay, so I see something that looks like what I'm looking for. But in order to know for sure, one, I could just place a breakpoint, which I am looking into on how to do that. But it's not as trivial as far as I can tell, it's not as trivial as just placing a breakpoint here and then running the game. Okay. So that sort of maps to this comment that I just read. So we go to game mode file select. There's a note here that says only instance type transitions swap to file select. What is an instance type transition? Well, there's a transition mode enum that has this keyword instance in it. And then looking at one of those instance keywords cases in zplay, we've got game mode file select relevant logic here. So I think I'm getting closer. So now I want to scope out. I want to take a bird's eye view of what I'm looking at right now. So we're in play update, but we're in a switch statement. What is this switch statement? I know we're in a switch statement because there's a bunch of cases here. You only really see those in switch statements. Okay, so we're checking the transition mode. And as long as the transition mode is not off, presumably off is there is no transition happening right now. So we're starting a transition. Transition trigger. Okay. We're starting a transition. We have a transition mode. Did we set a transition mode? We did not. We did not. So I want to look up these instance transitions. Okay, this isn't even used. If we're in transition mode running, here's an equals, so we are setting to transition mode running. that does not look relevant. Transition mode instance wait. Let me go to the beginning of play update. I want to see if there's any transition stuff at a higher level here. Okay, transition mode. Oh, and a transition trigger is not transition trigger off. Oh, if we are in transition mode off, which I have to assume that we are, because I haven't seen any logic related to that up to this point. And our transition trigger is not off, which we see here. It is not off anymore. We just set it to start. Then our transition mode is set up. So this looks to be what I'm looking for, but this is an if statement that checks if frame advance update. I don't know what this does. Frame advance allows you to advance through the game one frame at a time on command. To enable, hold R and press D-pad down on the specified controller. Interesting. To advance a frame, hold Z and press R. Holding Z and R will advance frame every half second. This function returns true when frame advance is not active, meaning the game runs normally. Thank you to whoever wrote that. Okay. So, where does it return? Okay, I see. If it's not enabled, or if these buttons are there, then return true. Okay, so let's assume that frame advance update is not enabled because it would start off as false, and then we're checking if R and D down are pressed. If it is, then it flips, meaning it is enabled, and if it is enabled, then this would become false unless we press these buttons. Okay, so if it was enabled, this would return false. Let's assume that it is not enabled, and therefore this returns true. Following? This is kind of nitty-gritty now. So we have an assumption right now that this will return true. We have this assumption because we have never seen transition mode being set anywhere before, not even when we're transitioning here. Instead, we have this trigger that's being set. And that trigger is not off. And we're assuming that transition mode is transition mode off. Okay, so we're in setup now. Which means we go into here, and we are child day. Well, we store child day. And transition trigger is not end because it is start. Man, I mentioned this earlier, but I really want to get debugging set up here because it will be so much easier to just hit a breakpoint and just run it and then just see what happens, right? So it will come, just not yet. Change HUD visibility. So we don't see any HUD. We set the scene layer. But this is if we're in a cutscene. But would we be in a cutscene right now? But we're in a different game mode. Is this... Yeah, this is just play update. So there is no game mode. Game mode has not been checked yet. We set a scene layer. Oh, that's if we have a cutscene index set, which at this point, we might still have a cutscene index set. I'm not sure. So let's move on. We do a setup transition. Our transition mode was setup, right? Yeah, it was. Okay. I need to see when this case ends. Should be a break in here. And it should be before the next case, too. Okay, so here it is. Okay, we have a transition context. That's checking for the transition type. Okay. I feel like I'm digging too deeply into the weeds now. So let me remind myself what we're doing here. ZE and mag. We've pressed a button. We've changed game modes. I'm very curious to know how we get into that loading screen. Or the, what do we call it? File select. File select is what we are interested in now. File select shows up in 3 places. One is in play update. If it's not file select, over here, and this goes to transition mode instance running, and what came before this was init, and then setup. And we are in setup, so we go to setup, which was here. And I don't think we set a transition mode here. We fall through. I'm just going to look for a transition mode. Let's go to the first use. This is in play setup transition. Or is that called? In play update. Oh, I see. So when we're in the setup mode, we set up the transition. Oh, I see. We load in the type of transition. So we create a transition context. We get the type. Type is fade black. So there's fade black. Yeah, okay. So fade black does all this stuff. Okay, now we can go back. Okay, so we've set up the transition. Now we fall through here. Okay. We know that we're in fade black, right? Oh, so it sets the duration. Okay, I don't want the specifics of how it does that. I want the specifics of how we transition. Like, where is the next... Oh, here it is. Okay, so here we set the transition mode. So if the type was a delayed type, we set the mode to instance wait. But now we go to instance running. Instance running is what? Oh boy. Aha. Yeah, now we're back to the logic that I thought was correct. Except the game mode is file select. All right, so let me summarize what I think that I just learned right now. Because this is a lot of code to sift through. In fact, I need to start documenting. I think I'm at about my time limit right now, so I'm going to start documenting what we've learned here. So let's create a gist. I want a new file here. I want enmag. Now let's do title to what is it called? File select.md. Here. Let's just do a bullet pointed list. All right, and where do we start? Let's start in the cutscene. Okay, so I can't link directly to this because this is extracted. So okay, but I can link to this. So I'm going to copy a GitHub permalink. This should be at latest main as of today. So the first thing that happens is... Oh, actually, let's go to here. So the first thing that happens is zenmag listens for cutscene flags 3 and 4. Where is my... I have to zoom out a little bit. Okay, so the first thing that happens is zenmag.c listens for cutscene flags 3 and 4. I'll put a link in there. Okay. These flags are fired by the intro cutscene. Okay. Let's go back to zenmag. Yeah, so it listens for those, which begin, fade in, fade out. Now, while zenmag, let's just simplify that. While enmag is displayed, it does what? Okay, let's change this. If the player presses A, B, or start, and let's link to this line right here. If the player presses A, B, or start while zenmag is being displayed, it sets the game mode to file select and starts a transition. I'm going to put a link there. Okay. So it starts this transition. Now, I believe what happens next is it would be in zplay. Let's look for some transition. Okay. Yeah, if the transition trigger in Z play, if the play state's transition trigger is not off, set transition mode to setup. And I wish I had a better way to sort of document this, but you know, this is just the fastest thing that I can do right now. Okay, so we've set the game mode, the transition mode to setup. When the transition mode is set up, and I will link to that. Sure. What do we do? I bet this scene layer has to do with that file select screen, because the scene layer ultimately affects the actors in the world. Like, I bet that menu where you can type in your name, I bet that's an actor in the world. So we'll come to that next time we start digging in here. We do a setup transition, right? So, right, when we set the transition trigger to setup, we also set transition type is also fade black. Now in, where is this now? Okay. If transition type bit shifted by 5, circle type. I don't think this is a circle type. Okay. Get a permalink. Does this part really matter? Not directly. I don't fully know how that transition context works. I'm sure it's somewhere in play and it does specific stuff. But setup transition does something else here. Before it ends, it was something pretty relevant, wasn't it? We get a transition type. I think transition mode gets set. Transition type. This is fade black. Yeah, transition mode. But it's not set. Because we go here and something else happens. Okay, let's go back here. Right, but I think transition mode needed to be set up here. Oh no, wasn't it set just before? Yeah, okay, so it was set here. That's the key thing here. So transition mode is set to, what was it? Transition mode is set to setup. When the transition mode is set up, it runs a bunch of stuff. It also falls through into instance init. The setup case falls through to instance init. And I should note here that right. Okay, so I'm gonna note that there's a comment. The comment next to game mode file select, and we're gonna link to that, suggests that instance type transitions are specific to file select. All right. Okay, so we've fallen through to instance transition mode instance initialize. Let's save that. Now what? Right, the transition type is black. How would this be if I turned on word wrap, by the way? Okay, easier to look at, kind of. All right, let's try this. That's kind of disgusting, but at least I can see all the text. Okay, black slow. Okay, that doesn't do anything. No, I'm turning off word wrap. Sorry. Sorry, dude who commented about that like 8 episodes ago. Aha, okay, so right here. So at the end of this case, which is transition mode instance init, which fell through from the previous case. So we know that this is going to be hit. Okay, so here we check, is the transition type white CS delayed? If it is, the transition mode becomes instance wait. If not, the transition mode becomes instance running, which is in fact the next case. So this probably runs in the next instance of this update function. So we'd have to dig through that, but let me document this. It falls through to instance init. At the end of the instance init case, transition mode is set to instance running. Okay. Which is going to fall into this case on the next update. So let me briefly... Oh, this is the end of the switch. Cool. Update non-instance transitions. If it's fill in, fill out, fill brown, mode instant, instance wait, sandstorm, sandstorm end, black fill. Okay, so none of those. We wouldn't fall into that. If we're in normal, blah, 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 if we're paused. Okay, so this is getting into the greater, like game is running. Like if we're not paused, then we are going into collision checks for attacking, for things getting hit. I think this is things getting hit. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Damage, updating a bunch of stuff. Viewpoint, skybox update, that's cool. Interface update, yeah, we're doing all the stuff. Okay. Are we still in play update? Yes, we are. If frame advancing or during tile transitions. Don't know what that is. Environment update. Okay. So we update all of that stuff. Eventually we will come back to this case. Which is here. So we are in instance running. Just gonna do what? I need to zoom out a little bit, give myself more space. Apologies if you can't read that. Post a comment if this level of text is an inconvenience for you, and I'll keep that in mind for next time. If the transition context is done. Only if it's done do we do any of this. Otherwise, we update it. So let's say the transition finishes. Trans trigger end. Okay, we're not... What is our transition type? Is it greater than or equal to max? It is not. because we are fade black. Okay. Now, is it not equal to end? Good. So now running is false. And the game mode is file select. So we set the next game state to file select, which is going to set running to false. No, it doesn't. Okay, we don't want to set running to false because we stay in the play state. But in this current state, we set the initialization function. That's very interesting. So in this state, we set init. But what's going to cause us to void 0? Yeah, so we put a semicolon there. Okay, I think this is a good place to stop it. Let me just document this. Copy permalink. Okay, so when in instance running transition mode, if the transition trigger is not end, set running to false. Let me reword that. That's kind of confusing. State.running is set to false when the transition completes and the transition trigger is not trigger end. So let's link that there. And then here we go. Okay, so now when the game mode is not file select, the next game state is set to file select. Okay, so this document now describes how I think at this point we get from, we're on the title screen, ZNMag is there, it's checking for the button press, we press the button, it begins a transition, that transition ultimately ends up setting the next game state to file select. So I think that's a great place to stop. In the next one, the questions I have right now are, okay, so we've now set the next game state to file select. But, what actors are in the world at that point? How do we handle this transition? Because we're not changing game states here. Actually, oh man, okay, so running is set to false, so the game state does change. So we do end up loading a new overlay. Okay. Yeah, setting game state running to false is going to end up setting a new overlay, which means it is going to initialize again, but it's going to initialize in file select. All right, so this is actually a great point to stop for now. In the next episode, we are going to jump into file select, how that gets loaded. Are there any actors in that world? What is the scene file? I'm excited for that one. So yeah, thanks for sticking around. Happy New Year's to everybody. I forgot to mention the most important thing, which was I had my coffee right here. It's the oatmeal cookie cold brew. It's my new default from Phil's. Phil's, please sponsor me. It's too much advertising for you guys for free. But no, they make good stuff. And yeah, I'm excited for this new year. I have ideas. I want to jump on those ideas. And if you're watching this up to this point, thank you. And just know that I am starting to... I think I need a video editor. I'm starting to find like my style with these videos, but I'm finding that, man, video editing just takes so long. So with this video, I am just going to do minimal editing and just sort of push through it until it gets done. But that ends up taking a lot of time for me. So, you know, when I record these, I do have timestamps. I do the little claps to see points that I need to cut. But yeah, it would help if I had somebody help me out with this to save me some time. So if you do any video editing or know anybody that does video editing, let me know. And I'm happy to chat about what that might look like. So yeah, all that being said, thanks for following the channel. Thanks for following along on this journey. I am enjoying it quite a bit. It's a new way for me to grow, which I really, really love. And it's something that resonates with me and hopefully you too. So that being said, I will catch you in the next one. See ya.